Hey YouTube, Joyboy here. So, today I want to talk about the destruction of Fishman Island. And so this is a topic that came up in a recent video, and in fact a topic that I've theorized on at length in the past, but I finally have some really amazing evidence to substantiate what was my previous beliefs. And this is all thanks to user Gambia's grandma, who I think has that name for all various forums and social media. But again, before we get into the topic of this video, I want to let you guys know, if you don't know already, that I have a Discord. Link for it will be in the description. If you don't know what it is, click on it and find out. It's cool. And so yeah guys, the destruction of Fishman Island. If you don't know what I'm talking about, basically in the Fishman Island arc, this character named Madame Charlie prophesied that Luffy would be the one in the future at some point in time to destroy Fishman Island. And so guys, as many people have noticed, ever since this first was revealed, this has to be some kind of mistake. In what situation would Luffy ever destroy Fishman Island? He loves Fishman Island, he loves the people on Fishman Island. It does not make sense. And so from this point in time, many people have rationalized it in many ways. But regardless of how people think about it, they come to the conclusion that it is a good thing that Luffy ends up destroying Fishman Island, or it is an absolute necessity. And so guys, as you should know, in my very last One Piece video, I talked about the potential that Big Mom would head towards Fishman Island and would in some part be responsible for the destruction of Fishman Island. And in that video, I basically told you that I don't believe that. And while it is theoretically possible, there are situations that you could create. I saw a good one in the comment section which basically theorized that Brûlé would take on the appearance of Luffy as revenge and then destroy Fishman Island. Things like this are possible, but I just don't believe it, and that's because it's too convenient. The fishmen have already been preparing for the possibility that their island is destroyed, and they themselves do not want to live there anymore. It's almost said to us outright. In the past, the people of Fishman Island, specifically during the Void Century, desired to live on the surface under the sun. This will has carried throughout the generations, as many wills do in the world of One Piece. In the Void Century, they built the Noah, which is a passenger ship, which is, I suppose, intended to carry the residents of Fishman Island out of their country. So then guys, if Fishman Island is destroyed, it's not really a big deal because their plans and their dreams exist outside of Fishman Island. And so guys, honestly, I find it too convenient that some kind of enemy, whether it be Big Mom or another Yonko or the world government, ends up destroying Fishman Island, essentially helping them towards their dreams. Guys, I feel as though Oda has the opportunity to direct the story in a much more powerful and emotional way. And I do think that it would be an injustice if anyone other than Luffy actually destroys the place, and if Luffy's going to do that, again, it has to be justified either as the right thing to do or something that is unavoidable. And so guys, let's talk about the destruction of the Red Line. This is one of the oldest, best, and most popular theories to ever be created. Essentially, it postulates that it is important for the heroes of the story, Monkey D. Luffy, to destroy the Red Line for the purposes of uniting the world. The world is in pieces, and by destroying the Red Line, you bring those pieces together and form only one piece. And so there's lots and lots of clues which suggest this as a possibility within the story. I could sit here and enumerate all of them, but I feel like that it's too much time wasted to do that at this particular time. I have many videos arguing for and mentioning various things that contribute towards the idea that the Red Line is something that is foreshadowed to be destroyed and needs to be destroyed. And so with this being explained, one of the most popular explanations for how and why Luffy would end up destroying Fishman Island is by extension related to the idea that Luffy will be the one to destroy the Red Line using the power of the ancient weapon Pluton. Fishman Island sits below the Red Line, below MavisHdz, where the celestial dragons live. If they happen to destroy the Red Line at that particular part, then of course Fishman Island would get crushed underneath the rubble. This is something that I believe to be truth, and if you take it as truth, then it makes any previous destruction of Fishman Island pointless. It has no overall impact on the story, because we've already rationalized that the fishmen want to leave and have set up means to be able to leave, and that if all goes according to plan and all the theories are right, then Fishman Island will be destroyed anyway through Luffy's efforts at the end of the story. So that Luffy and his crew will someday destroy the Red Line and inadvertently destroy Fishman Island. But I have never thought that this was the whole truth. I always felt like there was more to it, and I made arguments in the past for it, and this is where I want to talk about what Gambia's grandmother shared with me and the arguments that he made for essentially the same idea. And to put it bluntly, guys, I believe that Monkey D. Luffy will, with his own fists, on purpose, destroy Fishman Island. Not relating to destroying the Red Line, this would take place before then. I'm saying that Luffy will literally destroy Fishman Island, exactly as Madame Charlie predicted. And so guys, let's start off with Gambia's grandmother's evidence, which I find to be very persuasive. And this revolves around potential foreshadowing from the Arlong Park arc. And so guys, at any point in the story, has Luffy ever purposefully destroyed some place for the benefit of someone else? The answer to this is yes, and the situation in which it occurred was the Arlong Park arc, where Luffy specifically destroyed Arlong Park. But this wasn't just collateral damage. Luffy noticed something, made a decision, and acted on it. He did it for the benefit of Nami. Let me read to you what occurred. And so Luffy was fighting Arlong, and they ended up inside of Arlong Park, the building, specifically in the room in which Nami had slaved away the vast majority of her life up until that point, drawing maps for Arlong. Luffy asked Arlong what exactly this room was, and Arlong explained, basically saying that for Nami, there was no better happiness than to stay here and draw maps. And upon hearing this, Luffy then began to chuck everything in that room out through the window. Luffy has this to say: "I ain't got a damn clue about fishmen or how great they are, nor do I know anything about maps or her circumstances, but I finally know how to help her now. This room that she never wanted to be in, I can't allow it to exist. I'll erase this place down to the very last trace." And while this is going on, Nami is watching Luffy and says thank you. And then Luffy beats Arlong by destroying Arlong Park. If you're looking for an example for why Luffy would destroy a country and why the destruction of the country might be necessary, this is your example. For Nami, Arlong Park was a prison and a symbol of her oppression and a reminder of her past that she would rather forget. Once Luffy defeats Arlong and defeats the Arlong pirates, then Nami need never return, and this place need not continue to exist. The reason that I bring this all up is because it is so applicable to the citizens and the people of Fishman Island. The island of Fishman Island is the same as Arlong Park to Nami. Now before we continue, I think that I need to make sure that you understand or have heard my speculations regarding discrimination, racism, and slavery, and the Void Century. I will include a link in the description for the whole theory. It is one of my absolute best theories. Honestly, I think it is the most important one on my channel concerning how many other speculations that it affects and the amount of evidence. But if you're not going to watch it, what you need to take from it is that during the Void Century, the Ancient Kingdom was friends with the non-human people of the world, including the Fishmen. This is so obvious because the ancient weapon of the Ancient Kingdom was in fact a mermaid princess, and Joy Boy, who's talked about on the poneglyphs, specifically made a promise with this same princess from Fishman Island. And so guys, on the flip side, the 20 Kings, which after winning during the Void Century went on to form the world government, they were fighting the Ancient Kingdom. And there is a ton of specific evidence which suggests that they are not friends with these same groups. In fact, they supported or brought about eras of slavery for these people. And this same mentality has carried on to their descendants, the Celestial Dragons, who are the same. And I speculate in that video that a large portion of the Void Century, the story that the poneglyphs will eventually tell, will revolve around the conflict between the non-humans and the humans and the Ancient Kingdom fighting for these various non-humans' rights. And as it's stated on multiple occasions throughout the story, many of the fishmen and the fishmen's ancestors don't want to live on Fishman Island. I even believe that it has been hinted at that originally the fishmen did not actually come from Fishman Island, but rather congregated there after they were forced to the sea because of humans. Fishman Island was just the only place in the ocean which could recreate the feeling of being at home. But it's not as though it's easy for them to leave. It's almost as if they are trapped there, that Fishman Island is their prison. It's honestly not that difficult if you don't want to be someplace to leave, but it is difficult for the fishmen and the mermen and the mermaids, because when they go up into the surface and they encounter humans, they face a huge amount of discrimination, racism, and they are specifically targeted for slavery. So anyway guys, the point that I'm trying to sell here is that Fishman Island is not their paradise. Fishman Island is their prison, very much the same as how Arlong Park was Nami's prison. And I believe that there are far more parallels that are worthy of being discussed. And firstly guys, I think that there are a lot of similarities between Nami and Otohime. But it's this panel that sold it. Nami said this after essentially Arlong and the world government took all of the funds that she had raised to save Kokoyashi village. She said this: "Please just wait a little bit more. I'll try my best again, so please. I promise I'll raise enough money once more. It'll actually be easier this time." Basically, the idea that is being conveyed here is don't give up. We can still win. No matter how long that it will take, we'll raise enough money, we will save this land. There is no need to fight. Which is almost exactly the same perspective that Otohime gives Fishman Island. In order to save her lands and her people, she will continue to collect signatures and strive for the surface. Regardless of how long, regardless of what happens, even as she has to restart and do it again every single time. In both Nami's and Otohime's situation, they took it upon themselves to carry the burden. In both Nami's and Otohime's situation, in order to avoid conflict, they sought to make alliances with and allies with those who wanted to hurt them and their friends and their family and their people. And the act of doing so in both of their situations was viewed as a betrayal by some. The two situations, in my opinion, are remarkably similar. However, there is one distinct difference, and this difference is created from the fact that Nami's arc, Nami's story in regards to Arlong Park is finished, and Otohime's quest is not yet. And what I'm talking about is Nami attempted to raise funds in order to save her island, but ultimately was thwarted by Arlong and the world government. And the act of this occurring enraged the people of Kokoyashi village. They had had enough, and they were willing to die for the sake of getting revenge on what they had done to Nami, taking advantage of her kindness. So as stated earlier, Nami represents the people of Fishman Island and Otohime, and Arlong and the world government, or the Marines, represents the world government. And so in this case, with the people of Fishman Island, Otohime went on a quest to collect all of these signatures in order to get the people of Fishman Island onto the surface, and this is very near a reality. This is what the royalty of Fishman Island are likely to discuss at the Reverie. I don't believe it's stated outright, but essentially, they have the ability to attend the Reverie. And as Otohime said on her deathbed, whenever you find it in your hearts to mend your hearts, or maybe Fukaboshi said this, when you find it in your hearts to heal, then we again will talk about collecting the signatures necessary to get the people of Fishman Island to move up into the surface. And I think what has occurred between Jinbei and Luffy at the end of the Fishman Island arc is what the people needed in order for their hearts to mend and start accepting the possibility of living with the humans. I believe that it was extremely important that they learned that Otohime was not killed by a human, rather killed by a fellow fishman in Hody Jones. And so guys, if you followed this theory up until this point in time, you should know that if something like this occurs, it would be very curious. I think that we can guarantee that if the fishmen try and move up into the surface, it's not going to be happily ever after. There has to be some intervention by Luffy to save the day to make this possible. It will not be this simple. And guys, as I have previously theorized a very long time ago, I don't think it will be that simple. And it all centers around the circumstances which led to it being possible for the fishmen to live up on the surface with the humans, which is that Otohime traveled with a celestial dragon all by herself in order to make a point to the people of Fishman Island saying the humans are not that dangerous, and she came back from this venture with a document signed by a celestial dragon supporting the notion that the fishmen would travel up into the surface, assuming that the residents themselves of Fishman Island support the cause. It's all well and good, right? Until you remember that this same celestial dragon visited Fishman Island for the sole purpose of retrieving the slaves, the fishermen slaves that had been set free due to Jinbei essentially joining the Shishibukai and all members of the Sun Pirates getting pardoned. And upon arriving on the island, his ship was destroyed by sea kings. He called the fishmen fish. He hated them. The fishmen, in fact, tried to kill him. They said that they could get away with it, given that this would all be pawned off as some sort of accident at sea, and Otohime intervened to save him, but this is a vile celestial dragon. He vowed revenge after they saved his life and nursed him back to health. A vile celestial dragon which supports the notion that the fishmen will live up on the surface? That does not make sense. I can almost guarantee you that the celestial dragons gave them this document and allowed them the possibility of traveling up into the surface in order to recapture all of them, in order to make them his slaves because he loves fishmen slaves. That was the reason. Essentially what I'm suggesting, guys, is that the fishmen are going to get betrayed by the world government, just the same as Nami was betrayed by Arlong. And it's even possible that at the same time, around the same time, some human group or person is going to attempt to capture Shirahoshi or Poseidon, because Caribou knows of this information. He's going to give this information to someone. Someone's going to try and capture Shirahoshi, and most likely that person will be a human, and this could not help the situation. I think just the same as the Arlong Park arc, after Nami is essentially betrayed, in this case, Nami is Otohime. So when Otohime's desires are betrayed by the world government, the people of Kokoyashi village took arms in a futile attempt to get revenge and take on Arlong. And I think the parallel very easily could be the people of Fishman Island picking up arms and attacking the world government. This is a direct quote from one of the royal brothers at the very end of the Fishman Island arc. Next time we see you, we'll be leading the greatest fighting force the depths have ever seen. You count on it. Now, I'm not exactly sure why he said this, under what circumstance. I read the chapter, still doesn't make sense to me, but I believe that this has huge significance based on this theory. I want to take a moment to read some of the quotes from the Arlong Park arc that are related to this, because I just think that they are really powerful, considering the fishmen are essentially betrayed when their dreams are very near completion. 8 years ago, we swore not to throw our lives away, no matter how painful it may be living under their rule. We swore that as long as Nami was fine, we would limit ourselves to a fight of endurance. But this is how they answered us. Now that our only chance of liberation has been denied, there is no longer any hope for this island. But we shall never forgive those fishmen who dared toy around with the kindness of that girl. Any objections? Of course not. Now let's go. As if we'd accept their rule now that things have come to this. Everyone in this whole village has always been prepared to fight. Let's go, everyone. Even if we may not win, let's show them our spirit. And when all hope is lost and it seems like all fates are sealed, Nami turns to the last person that she has, Luffy. This is, at this exact moment, what I believe will lead into the Straw Hats fighting the world government in MavisHdz. But I think it's very important, and this concept is brought up multiple times, that some scars do not heal very quickly. I think that many of the fishmen will find it impossible to forgive the humans after what occurs leading up into this war. As Fisher Tiger says verbatim, it's too late for me, I can't love the humans anymore. And so guys, how does this relate to the destruction of Fishman Island? I believe that Luffy will destroy Fishman Island because it's necessary, so that the fishmen cannot return there. that their prison being destroyed, they are forced to coexist with the humans after the point in time where the Allies win. Those humans who purchased from the slave traders are an elite minority known as nobles. The humans with whom we are familiar are but a tiny fraction of their society. We still know next to nothing about humanity as a whole. This is why we must move our kingdom so that our societies can live together under the same sun. And it may be true that at this moment they can't forgive the humans, but perhaps they'll learn by coexisting with them that not all of them are so bad. As Otohime says herself, we still know next to nothing about humanity as a whole. And Jinbei thinks to himself, fear of the unknown? Will things change if we learn more about one another? I think that it's worth speculating that some fishmen at this point in the story would rather die than live with the humans. So even if it's true that the destruction of the Red Line is going to happen, Luffy is going to destroy it, and by destroying it, it would destroy Fishman Island. While Fishman Island exists, while Luffy allows it to exist, some might choose to stay there rather than move up. And so in that way, Luffy must first destroy Fishman Island to get all the fishmen to leave. But anyway guys, that's just my thoughts. Again, thanks to Gambia's grandmother for sharing the connection with Arlong Park. I found it to be extremely powerful, and I hope that you agree. But if you don't, let me know. Like the video if you like the video, dislike the video if you dislike the video. Make sure to check out Discord and Patreon links in the description. Patreon if you want to support my content. And as always guys, have a wonderful day.